Hello and welcome to The Swing. As always, it's your boy HK, and I'm joined by my co-host, That Guy Owais, as The Swing podcast makes its return.
Yeah, boy. Let's go.
End of the season, we got to see a certain Greek freak crowned as his first NBA championship, really giving justice to all the moves that the Milwaukee Bucks had made, everything that had happened to be able to get them to the scenario where they finally did get over that hump, get that championship, and we are now sitting in the absolute apex of the offseason. Barely a month away from the NBA season, and there has been landscape shifts as far as the NBA is concerned to be able to come back and see if they can dethrone the Deer Kings. That Guy Owais, I know it's been a bit. What you been up to, man?
Dude, it's been busy, but I'm excited to talk about basketball today just because there's so much going on. And, we really wish we could have been there every step of the way from the championship finals, Milwaukee winning and everything else in between from now and then. But that's what this episode's for. And hopefully within the next month, because we are a little bit more free, we can break down some of the incredible moves that have happened in the offseason that may or may not be amazing to see. Depends on what team you're a fan of. And on top of that, we're just happy to see another season of Chris Paul not winning the championship. So that's great. But yeah, Mr. HK, let's dive right into it. I don't want to talk too much about the finals because I feel like, we can allocate an entire episode to that in itself. But we're going to talk about probably the most talked about thing and the hottest topic in the NBA right now. And that is that Ben Simmons is wanting out of Philly. What the hell is going on in Philly right now? Tell me. It's combusting, if you will.
Yeah. And some of it isn't really a surprise. I would say Ben Simmons was pretty much on his way out from the moment he decided not to put up that dunk against the Atlanta Hawks, got that pass in. But really, this has just been a situation that's been simmering for a number of months now. And really, there was no surprise or no unknowns about the fact that Daryl Morey is trying to see what kind of pieces he could get for Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons himself had come out and essentially said, I'm not going to report to training camp. I'm not going to be associated with the Philadelphia 76ers anymore. And I'm looking for a new destination. So it's just been like, there's no way to beat around the bush. Ben Simmons is on his way out. What that means for a Philadelphia 76ers team, which is in an odd scenario, because technically it's not their best player that wants out. That would be Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid is on for a long-term contract with Ben Simmons, who also had signed on for a 5-year rookie extension. So they would be right in the middle of what should be their window to try and make that run. But for better or for worse, it has obviously not worked out. They've had a couple of close shaves, the Kawhi bounce, and other things that have just been self-inflicted, getting swept by the Boston Celtics in the bubble year in the first round, which was just absolutely terrible.
Horrendous.
And then really shot themselves in the foot to not come out with the W in the Atlanta Hawks series, where they just combusted. And it was clear that whether it be the chemistry, whether it be the talent, or just whether it be the combination of all of those things, it just isn't working in Philly, and something had to change. It looks like it's going to be the Ben Simmons offseason in which we're trying to figure out exactly where he's going to end up as far as his new team is concerned, and also what the Philadelphia 76ers could potentially be doing in this situation, because it's just stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's really not much value that you can extract from a guy who is at his essential, absolute low as far as his value is concerned in the market. And from what we're hearing, there aren't nearly as many suitors as perhaps Daryl Morey would have hoped.
Right. I mean, I remember around the trade deadline situation, someone was throwing Ben Simmons' name into the mix for Kyle Lowry or something like that. And then the offseason comes and we're hearing that more and more. And surprisingly, the Raptors are one of those teams that are really hot in, the talk to bring Ben Simmons over. Now, what that costs to the team is something that, is up for debate. But we trust in Bobby Webster and Masai in order to, make sure that we're not losing out much, or at least we'll have some sort of an equivalent exchange. But, in their lowest, Philly's lowest right now with Ben Simmons, it could be a very good opportunity. Now, do we like Ben Simmons as a player, as a functional player? There are some good parts to his game. For example, I think he's a fantastic ball distributor. He could be a great floor general. He's great near the basket. And quite frankly, his defense is top notch, right? That's something you can expect from Ben Simmons night in and night out. Now, when it comes to shooting from outside or shooting in general, that's not something that he has ever shown. Like it's funny, he always shows him working on that 3-point shot in the offseason. And like everybody's like, oh, this is the year he's going to shoot. And then he does it, right? Yeah. It's a great magician, the great magician, Ben Simmons. Now, from some of the trade scenarios I've seen on various different sources, we're seeing Pascal's name being thrown in there, Fred VanVleet being thrown in there, plus like first round picks and this and that. And I'm like, guys, let's be Philly. You got to get, I don't know, there's something shoved way up in there for you to think that Ben Simmons is someone that's worth that much, especially in this current state. In my opinion, you guys are the ones that are in the hot seat, right? No one really thinks they need a Ben Simmons, and that could be a good thing for many teams that are in the mix because, hey, Philly might just bite. But if I was Philly, okay, just give me that. I'm giving you my perspective. I don't think you trade Ben Simmons. I don't think so. Even if he just try to convince him, do something to convince him to stay on this team, because I do think they will figure it out some way. They will. Okay. One of the key factors in the championship run, they were missing Danny Green. He wasn't on the floor. Let's not forget the golden boy. Okay. But, in this situation, let's talk just specifically the Toronto Raptors. We picked up a piece of shit by the name of Goran Dragic. I'm not supposed to say that, but a piece of, I'm not going to, okay. We picked up the Dragon. Okay. He's a fantastic player. He shoots the 3-ball. He can pass the ball. And he's a great, great floor general in his own right. Something that, quite frankly, Philadelphia needs, okay? Space the floor out. What we've been waiting for years and years with Ben Simmons. So if I was looking at a realistic trade scenario, I would offer Goran Dragic and potentially one other player. Do I think maybe a first-round pick here and there as well, okay? So Goran Dragic, another player plus that first-round pick, I think is fair for a guy like Ben Simmons. And now, why do the Toronto Raptors need someone like Ben Simmons? I'll tell you why. One, quite frankly, we need someone who knows how to pass the ball. We do not have anyone, I repeat, anyone that can facilitate the ball or have any ounce of vision. We don't have that. And so we need it, okay? Ben Simmons would be a great fit. Now, we're not saying we'll play him as a point guard. I mean, I would think that you probably play him as like a 2, maybe a 4, I don't know, something around the lines of that, and get him to facilitate the ball more in the post or something like that, where we don't have to see him shoot threes because we have more than enough shooters, okay? That's why I think it'd be a great fit. I really do. If Ben Simmons is a Toronto Raptor at the beginning of the season, I'm telling you guys, it will be better for our team. And I would be really happy to see him here. Don't want the Kardashians to be a part of that. I hope they definitely split. But I don't know. I think that's a Devin Booker problem now. So we're okay.
But no, look, anyway. I don't think anyone's denying that Ben Simmons would be an asset coming into the Toronto Raptors or really any team. The difference being it's how Ben Simmons or specifically Daryl Morey and the Philadelphia 76ers are valuing him as a superstar.
Oh, yeah.
Frankly, he's more of a guy who raises the floor of a team. And part of my issue, as I've always said, why I do believe Ben Simmons, for instance, would be a great fit on the Toronto Raptors is because we have that scenario where he can finally play in his natural position of that 3-4 hybrid. Remember, that was his role throughout coming into the entire draft. His initial position was listed as a power forward. That was where, the guy of his size with his capabilities underneath the basket, as well as having that floor general capability, that is a huge asset to have when you're not just the primary ball handler. And that's kind of what's ended up happening here because Ben Simmons is just frankly so skilled in all of these different ways of what he can do. The problem is when you shoehorn him in to a scenario where he pretty much has to try and make it work with a guy who is, Joel Embiid, absolutely one of the best players in the league, a perennial MVP candidate as long as he stays healthy. But that was always an awkward fit with a Ben Simmons who essentially would be hogging the same space that Joel Embiid is in. That's really where he would do his best work. But because obviously Embiid is the guy over there, then you have Ben Simmons, who is now forced to essentially be primary point guard at all times. He's good enough to be that, but because his shooting ability is not there, in fact, that's just not the kind of guy he is, that all of a sudden becomes a huge liability once you get into scenarios where other teams are essentially daring you to be able to
100%.
When you become a point guard who absolutely has no range, then the team who's on the defensive end is very easily going to be able to give you that kind of space where it's like, all right, it's not enough for you to just be able to barrel down underneath the basket and try to get inside the paint to get easy buckets there. But no, the point you're going to have to get is either by creating in the half-court offense or by shooting from distance. Both of those are the two basically major weaknesses that Ben Simmons has always had.
Right.
That's, in my mind, just sunk Philly. That was never going to be a marriage that was going to work, and it's just natural that it's heading to a divorce now. So for me, Ben Simmons now, I disagree, by the way, that the Raptors don't have floor generals or any of that. I believe Malachi has shown he has the capability.
Malachi has, you're right. But do we expect him to be a starter? That's my question.
Passer. It's just a scenario.
He's not a good passer. I'm sorry.
Creator. But anyways, regardless,
we don't want to get into that debate. That could be for some other day.
What it gets you to is that it gives you that much more versatility in your offensive end. Because in my mind now, a guy like OG, for instance, can be shifted over to the 2 just as easily, where he could just be that guy who's shown he has the capability to be able to shoot, especially from the corner. His capability with the ball in his hand keeps getting better year after year, where I think he can be in a scenario of a more featured offensive guy. And I've already called it. I believe he's going to be an all-star this year. But
OG?
OG is going to be an all-star this year. But he's going to be in a scenario where he could potentially be playing the 2. And now you could have, if you get a Ben Simmons, in a scenario where he's either in a 3 or 4 with him and Pascal working together. And then you have whatever your Kem Birch scenario over there as your center. And that to me is just a nasty, nasty unit from a defensive standpoint, while also having a number of guys who can handle the ball.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to exactly what you're saying. What do the Raptors give up, and what is Philly willing to accept? Because essentially, they're not going to get fair value back. They're still hoping out that the Golden State Warriors thing can work out. They've been trying to get Wiggins, Wiseman, and picks, and the Warriors are like, no, that's not happening. Then they go to Sacramento, and they're like, yeah, well, we want De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton included, and Sacramento even is like, no, that's not happening. So it's really just going to be a matter of cat and mouse as to where eventually the shoe drops. And if Philly is going to be either in a scenario where they're going to try to rehabilitate the relationship, although I think it's way past that scenario. So now it's where you're going to move them. We know the Timberwolves are in the mix. They've got potential assets that could be just as outside of Cat. They've got Malik Beasley, who is an incredible shooter. Obviously, he has his own.
They do need like a Malik Beasley for sure. A guy like him would be huge for Philly.
But the thing is, no one's going to be, well, at least I don't think Darren Morey would be like, yeah, okay, I'll take a Malik Beasley plus, a Jared Culver or any of those like side pieces to be able to part with Ben Simmons. From a reputational standpoint, I don't feel like they would do that. that's why I'm really seeing that there's more traction coming into this Toronto scenario where a Chris Boucher and a Dragic, as an example, is one that fits. Maybe
and that's
we need
great.
to be able to also throw in a Malachi or something like that to sweeten the deal. I don't necessarily want to get rid of Malachi because I really do believe in that, but that seems to me a more logical and a value add trade that makes sense for both teams and actually gets a fit, even if it is not going to be, in your mind, the return, a superstar in your mind of Ben Simmons with Garner.
For sure. Now, time will tell. Time will tell. But I just want to quickly touch up on something that you mentioned, and it's Raptors related. How crazy of a bench unit do we have this year? It's so insane. Imagine we have Gary Trent. We got freaking our boy Barnes. Okay. We got ourselves freaking Yuta Watanabe. You got Gillespie. And then on top of that, if you add a guy
Malachi would be likely the starting, the point guard coming off the bench, the first guy.
So imagine from a pick and roll standpoint, and just the spacing in that, plus like the way everybody fits into their role so perfectly.
Yeah.
Honestly, that second unit could be so deadly. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about that. But speaking of other moves, there has been some insane moves. We saw some in the last trade deadline where, Nikola Vucevic had made his way to Chicago. And now two other really solid pieces have made their way to accompany Vucevic and Zach LaVine in the names of DeMar DeRozan. No, he did not go to Miami. DeMar DeRozan and my boy Lonzo Ball, someone I really wanted to be a Raptor this year, honestly. But those two guys, and what do you see about this team in just the amount of star power they have now?
Well, I don't know if I'd necessarily say that they've got an amount of star power on there, but I believe that Chicago is just, again, one of those teams that has been craving for some success, some capabilities to be able to get themselves back into relevancy, get themselves back into that playoff hunt, that playoff picture. And I believe these moves really, if I was to be, what I'm really thinking is that really it's a treadmill move. They're not putting themselves in a scenario where they're really going to be able to compete with the top end and put themselves into that picture of, hey, we're trying to make a run. But what they've gotten together is really a bunch of misfits that are out to kind of prove themselves yet again. It's like, let's take Nikola Vucevic, for example, right? For years and years on Orlando, has been by far their best player, has been one of the best big men in the league, almost under the radar. People don't really notice everything that he does. I mean, I love Vucevic. I watch him game in, game out. And this guy is absolutely monstrous. But because of his scenario in Orlando, they've really not been able to be anything better than a first-round exit just based around how things are. Chicago hasn't even been able to get that, and question marks have started to then come up as, hey, is Zach LaVine the guy who could potentially be? Could Zach LaVine be that guy to be able to take that next step, to be a guy who can go deeper in the playoffs? And really that question has been left unanswered because of the fact that he's never really been, again, on a team that could put themselves into that scenario.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Sorry, you finish off your thought.
Yes. So with that in mind, what this DeMar DeRozan move does is really bringing together all of those assets to see what could potentially work. I still have a lot of questions about this team's capability to be able to space out whatsoever. Obviously, Lonzo, who's an improved three-point shooter, can finally hold you, honest out there. But really, outside of him and LaVine, you're really struggling to be able to find that kind of spacing unless you're going to now, once again, have Vucevic be that guy from outside, who he can be, but that's not where he is most effective. And now, look, Lauri Markkanen is also gone from this team. He's gone over to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who that's a whole – I don't understand what Cleveland's doing, but we'll talk about that.
Why do they have so many bigs? Like, it just –
yeah, they're just looking to build a whole skyline on their end, not actually getting any dubs. But on Chicago's end, you've got a really versatile defensive unit in that, not only containing your Lonzo, who's great on the perimeter, Vucevic, very solid on the inside. You've got veterans in there with Thaddeus Young, all these guys who can actually keep finding ways to be effective. But is that good enough as a combined unit to be able to do something more than, I don't know, 6th seed at the absolute top end, which my mind is, I don't know.
We'll find out.
It'll be interesting to watch. Chicago has finally at least got something that the fans
they can
look
hope
forward
for.
to be able to
yes, 100%. So now, your point about Zach LaVine being someone, can he be that guy? Look, Devin Booker had not really made the playoffs up until now, and then he absolutely destroyed it in the playoffs. Okay, and Zach LaVine has worked on his game in a way where his offensive arsenal is next to none. I'm telling you, he is one of, in my opinion, elite scorers in this league. He has a catch and shoot. He has range. He can get to the basket. He has the mid-range. He's got the handles. He's got the acrobatics, and he's got the ability to be clutch. We've seen in the last 2 seasons with Chicago, how many have we seen where he absolutely clutches it, throwing like 30, 40 points a game type of situation. He has the ability. Now, where I struggle to understand this move is you have a guy like DeMar DeRozan. What does he demand? The ball. He's an ISO type of player. He facilitates a little bit better now later in his career, but at the end of the day, he's an ISO player. He needs to control the ball to get into momentum and this and that. Zach LaVine, much the same type of player. He needs the ball in order for him to get into rhythm. And then you have a guy like Lonzo. Now you have a facilitator, which is great. But what does that mean? He's got to use the ball to get, you know what I'm saying? So in my head, I'm like, okay, how does this work? I can see the synergy between a Alonzo Ball and a Vucevic, because I know how good that chemistry can be, because there's not a lot of bigs that can compete against Alonzo penetration with an alley-oop to Vucevic. That play will work 100% of the time. But where I don't see it is are we expecting DeMar and Zach to be kind of ISO once in a while? Are we switching that role up here and there? And what happens? DeMar can't shoot threes. So are you expecting? So I'm thinking of this as a bootleg version of the Philadelphia Sixers. That's how I see it. So you have your Ben Simmons in the Lonzo Ball. Okay. Good facilitator, can play good defense. You have DeMar DeRozan as the Tobias Harris minus the 3-point shot. Okay. And probably better facilitation. Zach LaVine being your I don't know who he would be in this situation, but if they needed somebody, let's put that aside. But Vucevic being the I'm not going to say, let's say Vucevic and Zach LaVine combined equals Embiid. Okay. So I just think of it as a bootleg version of that. I don't see how the chemistry works, because again, Zach LaVine's a volume shooter. DeMar has been known to be a volume shooter, not of recent, but can be. Alonzo Ball, outside of I don't know how I see this, but it is exciting. And if they do figure it out, quite honestly, you have a few guys that can really clutch it up for you. And I'm just excited to see how that works out. And I agree with you. 6th seed as a ceiling. I don't know how the bench is going to function either, in comparison to the starters, to be honest. But anyway, that's that. That's the Chicago Bulls. Now let's talk about one more trade before, I guess it's been a little bit of we spent a little bit of time on how Goran Dragic came to Toronto. At what cost? Kyle Lowry.
Don't do this
That's
to me, man.
Big booty cost right there, ladies and gentlemen. He is now a Miami Heat, and it just, you wish him the best, but you see some of those videos of how they're treating him. It's Kyle, come on, man. Come on. It just hurts here because they're treating him good, which is great, but it's come on. It doesn't look good. Pat Riley, take COVID distance, buddy. Please be COVID country distance from us. But hey, it's a reality now. He's the Miami Heat. He's with his boy Jimmy Butler and a fantastic organization. And I don't know, man. Did I expect him to go there? No, I didn't. But here he is.
I mean, I won't say I didn't expect him to go there. It was, first and foremost, it was clear that he was going to be on the move here, right? And honestly, I have absolutely no problem with that side of things, just because, look, we're obviously on a scenario where we're not in a competing window at this moment.
No,
At least not for the next couple of years. That's not our
no.
current goal.
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry, who's obviously given us his prime, his post-prime, and his prime that never ends. But all of that is now in a scenario where he's like, look, I'm going to be in my last few productive years as far as, starter level basketball is concerned, maybe another year or two that he has of that. So where is it that I could potentially be of use on a team that has aspirations of potentially making a deeper run?
For sure.
We all know what Miami did 2 years ago in the bubble. Now, some of that may very well have been, circumstances that allowed them to do that. See, Milwaukee didn't have a great playoffs that year. Giannis talked about how homesick they were, how just completely out of sync they were. But regardless of what happens, Miami showed that they had the personnel to be able to take advantage of the scenario as it comes and go as deep as they did. Credit to Jimmy Butler for playing out of his mind, and credit to Goran Dragic for playing just as well in that run. But now in Kyle Lowry coming there on a team that has a bona fide superstar, not only in Jimmy Butler, but an up-and-coming one in Bam Adebayo, this is the time to be able to try and leverage that, because Jimmy's not getting any younger. Obviously, Bam's got his time on there, but this is where Miami can try and really be that dark horse to come out of the East. Now, I'm not saying they are. As long as Brooklyn's healthy, to me, I don't think any team is beating them. But Miami is a legitimate contender to be able to actually say that, hey, we've got the talent to be able to go all the way if you take us lightly. And what we know about Miami is that as an organization, as a team, they're not the kind of guys that lie down, that don't play solid all the time. So basically, if you're going to beat them, you have to beat them. They won't beat themselves. And that's really what Kyle Lowry adds to this team as well. He adds just an immense amount of professionalism. He adds that dog mentality that is already present within the Miami Heat. So he's just a perfect culture fit for what that team is looking for. And just, if you're talking about a guy who's going to be your spiritual and emotional leader, you don't got to look any further than Kyle Lowry, who's been doing that for over a decade now.
Facts.
So it's
just... I mean, like, with that situation being, each one of those guys has pretty much tasted what the finals feels like, and they know what it takes. Kyle knows what it takes to make it past the finals, to that championship, to hold that trophy up. And quite frankly, his body, he maintains it so well. And you're right, he's a professional. I just want to see how that converts into Miami. Like, their mentality, you're right, has been very consistent, like hard-nosed. We might not be the most skilled team, but we're going to outwork you every single night. And that's kind of the culture. And that's kind of what Kyle's been his entire life. I'm not the most skilled point guard, but I will outwork you or I will die, one or the other.
Outsmart you as well.
Outsmart you, out-talk you, out-complain you, out-booty you. Yes, sir. But again, one thing I will say about the East in general, it's going to be a very exciting time. I always used to think as like the West being like the really, really exciting, conference. And most of those teams generally were more competitive. But this year, man, I'm saying from start to bottom of the East, you never know who's going to make it where. Of course, the top few teams where you have the Philadelphias, you have the Bostons, you have like the Brooklyn, Milwaukees, but everything after that, honestly, who knows? Who knows?
Where's the
Raptors? I'm not going to put. I don't know.
I don't know where the Raptors are. Conference Finals.
Sorry, Atlanta as well, but I'm saying in terms of seeding, I don't know where Atlanta is going to fall in terms of that, right? And then let's talk about LA. LA. A little bit more healthy now. I think they picked up Rondo, if I believe.
$2.9 million.
$2.9 million. Let go of Dennis Schroeder. I don't know what that guy was thinking. It could have had a huge extension, but decided to, opt out of that. And now Caruso's gone. Oh, Caruso's also in Chicago. Yeah, I almost forgot to mention. That's huge for their bench. Or if he's like a starting piece, I don't know. But Caruso's fantastic. Yeah, people have been saying that. They're unretiring 23 just for the Caruso. It's crazy. People are amazing. But anyway, talk about LA. And I think that's kind of one of the last team I wanted to kind of hit up.
I mean, what's to say about the Los Angeles Lakers, right? If there is a
Carmelo,
team
yeah.
that is absolutely just putting all of their chips into this run coming up, it's the LA Lakers. There's not much to be said as far as their potential health concerns, their average age, all of that stuff is there. And the reality is, it's going to come down to how they can potentially manage that workload to be able to get into the playoffs healthy. If they can do that, obviously the talent level is going to be off the charts. Never count out LeBron. Anthony Davis, who's coming off a down year by his standards, is really going to be looking to get himself back on that elite level that he has always been. And I mean, it was just a weird year altogether for Anthony Davis last year. He couldn't
For
shoot
many
his free
players.
throws. His health was being off after a number of years where he's been solid, and it just looked like he almost seemed like disinterested and lost in what was happening. But this year, obviously, Westbrook comes on, which by and large, regardless of anything else, is going to just infuse you with so much energy that everyone else just feeds off of that. And
Yeah.
regardless of his faults as, a shot creator, sometimes taking ill-advised shots, sometimes, being a bit too much to really be worried about what the team's success will be. But regardless of that, I'm a huge Russell Westbrook fan. I believe in what he always has to offer, and he's always an asset, regardless of which team he goes to. And I think the Lakers have what it takes to be able to figure it out and make that deep run in the West. But really, it's all going to come down to, can these guys get themselves healthy? If they can,
Absolutely.
Great. If not, then we're probably going to have the same kind of scenario last year in which the West is pretty wide open, and we could see. But more so than all these other years for the West, it's all about availability. We know that Jamal Murray is going to be back for the Denver Nuggets, but Kawhi for the Clippers is likely gone for the season. We don't know if and when he's going to return. Obviously, the Phoenix Suns made their run last year, but one more year under Chris Paul as far as his workload's concerned. Can he sustain himself up to that level? It really is. There's a lot of question marks with regards to many of the major teams as far as the West is concerned. So the Lakers have a real shot to be able to make it deep, but they just got to stay available and healthy.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because the common, I guess, criticism of the LA Lakers was like, hey, we need better perimeter shooting. And then they go ahead and they get Westbrook. And then they go ahead and they get Carmelo. And then it's funny because it's just like, and you love these guys and you really want them to win. But if you look at it from a practical standpoint, bro, you have literally 2 to 3 guys that will literally brick. Like if they're on, and that's great. But if they're not on, they're just gonna shoot meaningless shots and just really ruin it for you. But that's where the maturity, that's where like the alphaness comes out. Where does LeBron fit in to guiding these players to something that they've never had before, right? Carmelo never won a chip, never has, apart from maybe Denver, it hasn't really been successful since, right? Can you get him to play a game that is a winning style? Then you have, your Westbrook. Westbrook's been great. He's been in multiple opportunities where he should have succeeded, but somehow came short. Can he get him to play a lot smarter than he does, right? That's why he got Rondo, I would hope. And AD's health, it really depends on that because let's be honest, as much as I don't like LeBron's antics, that boy is one of the greatest ever. And he has done incredible things in the NBA, and he will continue doing incredible things until he absolutely retires. He is goated in the Mount Rushmore. And if anything, for all those fans that they want to see like the last little bit of like the millennia with, Carmelo being that one last guy, I want to see him win a chip. You want to see it happen. So we'll see. We'll see. I know you don't, but the way you feel about Carmelo is the way that I feel about Chris Paul. So I don't know. Anyway,
I don't feel that way about Chris Paul either, so I was very happy either way.
Good. So we both agree on something here. But yeah, so a lot of crazy moves. I feel like apart from Brooklyn, like a lot of these teams are just like, you never know who's going to end up where. And for that, we're excited. About a month and a bit to go before the season starts. Hopefully everybody's rested. Hopefully everybody's healing. I see Pascal Siakam on the Instagram stories all the time. That boy's working his shoulder out after that surgery. I hope he gets back into shape. And let's pray that the Toronto Raptors, really come out with a positive this season. I'm not expecting it to be a deep run or anything like that, but I want to see, your Gary Trent Jr.'s drop another 40, get those game winners. I want him to be that guy that we rely on to get that bucket. We got, our youth with Malachi and, Barnes to just, develop. Gillespie, Ken Burch, new contract. We want to see him flourish as well. Chris Boucher did great things last year. We want to see that continue. But all in all, let's just stay healthy and let's just have the bench contribute a little bit so that the starters can relax and have an all-around fantastic team and see them, hopefully, in the next few years, go deep.
Yep. And on top of all that, let's just have a COVID-free season. None of those COVID protocols, just get the stuff done. Let's have a regular season, please, to get ourselves back into some sort of state of normalcy. And hopefully with me being able to go into the Scotiabank Arena as well, because I missed that.
Just you? Just you? Us, man. Come on, stop the games. All right, anyway, but
me as in representing the Toronto Raptors fandom, who has had not only the inability to be able to go to their arena, but not even having their team in their city. The Tampa Bay Raptors, rest in peace. No one wants to see that anymore. All right,
no one.
Back where they belong. They get to open up their season against the Washington Wizards on the October 20th date at home with who knows how many fans. They haven't given us the final details yet, but hopefully we can get a safe yet noisy environment to welcome back the Toronto Raptors and get back to what we have always done in home openers, which is whoop ass.
Whoop some candy ass. Let's go. Anyway, that's it from us, ladies and gentlemen. HK always does the outro. That's his job, if you remember. So go ahead. And actually, before that, just give you some insight of some of the episodes that we're going to work on. Of course, Kyle Lowry being such a big part of the Toronto Raptors. We're going to go and do a little timeline of Kyle and what he means to the city and what he meant to us and some of the successes, some of, just an entire podcast dedicated to him because he definitely deserves that and more. And then, of course, we want to break down other teams as the transactions continue and signings continue. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll have an episode for the finals as well. And finally, when the season's about to start, we'll break down conference, division by division by division, give the thoughts, give the report cards. That's what you can expect from the Swing in the next few months. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give it to my boy over here.
Absolutely. There you go. Well, that guy always, as he said, the Swing always keeps you in the loop, in the swing of things for all news in the basketball world. So until then, this was That Guy HK. This is That Guy Owais on the other side as well. See you like how I did that?
I don't. Keep that far away from that. Keep it far. That's my branding, okay? That's my branding, not yours.
That guy.
I know everybody wants to be like me, but it's okay. It's okay. I'll take it, but just
But as always, make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Swing Podcast. You'll see it at the bottom. You can always catch us on Sports Trends as well, sportstrends.tv, on their Facebook page, IPTV, and on YouTube. Like and subscribe to all of our content. Helps us stay in the feeds, stay in front of your eyeballs, and also keep following us as you always do with our podcast. Then we love engaging with you guys. And until the next time, we will see you then. Stay safe and peace.
Lillard, long range three. Defended by Simmons. Is this the trigger? Boom shakalaka! Game! Series! Toronto!